Welcome to David's Coding Podcast. So, in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to create a Jira Tasks application. Now, I Googled AI, and AI was saying that it costs like between $80,000 and $120,000 to build an dynamic data web application with about 12 different tables in it, which is what I figure Jira might include. But we're going to try to see if we can drastically reduce those project cost estimates. So let's see how we would do that. So the hard part is, okay, so I've created a system that will create Jira data application programming interface dynamically. So then it's using Java, so it's enterprise out of the box. And all we have to do now is basically figure out how we want to bind our JSON data into basic HTML using JavaScript. Now this is a kind of tried and true approach, so a lot of people are going with React. I'm just going to go with an HTML element. So I've created a data grid, which is basically like an Excel spreadsheet and allows you to do the CRUD operations through the application programming interface. Now the challenge with the tasks is that it's like, well, how do you achieve this though in a generic way when you've got like inner joins and everything with a bunch of other tables? Like, this is fairly sophisticated, and this is why it costs so much. And I also just want to quickly reiterate that back in 1995, when you wanted to create a basic data grid like this, it would literally take you about 15 or 20 minutes. And the code looked a little bit like this. So let me see if I can find that. Display users. Here it is. So basically, you're just using server-side scriptlets to connect to a database with your username, password, credentials for the database, and then just doing your SQL statement. So this is like mixed together directly on the client. Now this is frowned upon now in the industry, and it's considered bad practice, and you want to avoid this. So that's why they've come out with all these other technologies. That's why React exists. That's why application programming interfaces exist. That's why it now takes you like a week to do the same thing. So the costs have gone way up, which has encouraged people then to go with subscription models, and it's helping to promote AI because it's like, this is too complicated now to make a web application. Let's just leave it to the professionals and pay them whatever they ask us in perpetuity per month. We'll pay them forever just to run our business. We'll have them host our business. So we're going to completely surrender our trust to another company, the tech company. And so whatever business we're in, we're just going to trust them wholeheartedly and give them whatever they ask us for. And then they will provide the security, because we know that the big tech companies are tried and true and follow best practices and will be the most secure, that probably better than we can do. So we're just going to give everything to them and let them run our business. So if you have a problem with that and you think, I don't know, is that a wise thing to be doing? I'm not sure, right? Like, I used to just hire this punk kid who could write this stuff out, and then we'd host it on our own servers that we controlled, so we knew our competitors couldn't get our data intelligence. Like, do you really want to be giving your business up to advertising companies that make all their money by selling your information to other companies? I'm not sure about that. So let's see if there's an alternative. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this Jira. So I've got a website now. Here's a basic thing. Now it's complicated because it has a bunch of relational database associated with it. Now we've already shown in a previous video how you can create the data models. So you can just create those with simple JSON. We know that already. So now what we're going to do is, how do you combine them? That's the trick. So I'm going to start with tabula rasa. It means clean slate. So we're going to do a blank slate and try to create that application. Now it's been estimated that this should take us 6 months and cost $100,000. So let's see if we can do better than that. So I'm starting with nothing. Start your clock now. Okay, that was just the intro, right? So I've got to give you a little bit of background. That takes time. So I got my API key. I've got an app ID. I've got my HTML. I'm matching it to this little container. So I'm going to drop my app in. We already know how we can quickly connect to database and stuff like that. But how do we join them now? Because we've got a database now with the 3 tables. We've got task status, and type. So we want to join them. So what we're going to do is we're going to first just create our JSON again for this view. So how do we go ahead and do that? What we're going to do is I'm going to grab the tasks for the task table. This is sort of the generic tasks as it would just appear normally without the inner join. And I guess I'll first see if this works, and then we'll go from there. So let me drop that down in. So part of my schema, I'm just going to put it at the top. Keep your variables up at the top. I should format this so you can probably see it better. It's just kind of all spaced funny. So too bad there wasn't a little, I'm sure there's a way I can just hit a button and it does this for me, but right now I'll just do this for now. Actually, I should Google that. Summary doesn't have to be in double quotes. I'm sort of mixing styles there. I'll take that out. Hopefully it still works. We still got our date. So it's basically, this is how we created our tasks table to begin with. And it has the relationships that we desire. So how do we implement that? That's the question. Like we got to get our CRUD operations and stuff to be updating the correct tables and stuff like that. I'm going to start by not really hiding anything. So I'll just get rid of the hidden columns there. This tables variable will determine which tables are affected by our save mechanism. So you can take things out. Let's first just bind the grid, and I want to show you some problems associated with this. So to bind the grid, normally we would just wait for this to happen and then put in our variable. It's our tasks. We want to create this task. Let's see if this works. So again, out of the box, we can see we're competing with the PHP people, the scriptlets, and we can do it. We can do it in like the 20 minutes, no problem. Now we just got to like format these things. So we don't want to display everything. We want to display the proper thing. So the question is, like, this is our raw table, and we want to convert this into the join view. So we want to dynamically create a view. So yes, we can do that with Gen API. How do you do that? So let's see. So what we want to do is I want to create this inner join. So I've got a function actually that will create it. So for example, I can just do like, let's take my schema Jira tasks. So this is the main part of our web application. We're going to do the inner join so that we can bring in the nice labels that look better than the cryptic key that's in there. So I'm going to set this equal, and then I've got this join function just to make it easier to see. So it follows a pattern. So the join type is going to be an inner join. So we're going to assume that there is a value. Like you could use left outer join, some other types of join if nulls are acceptable. But for this, you have to have a status on the task. Then we're going to join with what? The type. Because if we remember back in the beginning, if we looked at the Atlassian Home application, we've got request type. So we're going to do this first. We'll do request type, summary, user ID, status, and then some other stuff. So we're doing a request type right now. So let's go back to the code. So inner join, Jira type, that's my request type. And then I have to specify how I want it to join. So for example, I would say Jira type ID, by the ID basically. That's pretty easy. So I'm just going to go Jira task. Now I'm fully qualifying the name, so it knows the table first. So I'm following the protocol like that. And then we define the type ID to be like that, type ID. And then if I want to do another join, I have unlimited parameters. So I just keep following that sequence. So I'm going to do another inner join. This time it's going to be on the Jira status. And we kind of design them in tandem so that they're very similar to one another. So here we're going to do the Jira status dot ID is going to link to our Jira task dot Jira status ID, I think we called it. And that should do it. So that's going to link the two tables. And that's all there is. Excuse me, associated with that. So then the rest is just sort of formatting and mapping how that looks. So I'm just going to copy that section so you don't have to just watch me do tedious work. But it's pretty simple. This is pretty basic. And then we select our items then to follow the same format with the table name with an underscore and then the actual name of the column. This way we're following a certain protocol and the system will know how to do the CRUD operations correctly. So if I just go ahead and try that set of format parameters, we'll see if we get something that looks a little nicer on the screen. So let's go back to our grid and then see we got this is like the raw data. Users don't want to know what the IDs are. They don't care, right? So if we refresh, you see we get a clean grid now. Now there's a problem though, is like, the problem is that like on the screen for the requirements, we don't want them to change the status for everybody, like the status type. But you'll notice in the edit, it doesn't know the difference. So it's like, oh, let him change it, right? It's part of that, right? It's changeable grid. That's because we're using a reusable component that's designed to edit the fields in a table. But we're now applying it to a view, so now it's confused. I don't know what you want exactly. So let's just update that. So with this tables, if I only specify Jira task, then I'm only going to be able to edit the Jira task table, which is what I want for this implementation. I don't want them to be able to change the statuses. But I still have the statuses being editable as a kind of control, as an input box, when it should really be a label when I go into edit mode. So we'll look at that. So right now let's test if this works. So I've got a quick IT setup. I don't know where these numbers came from. Let's just clean that up, save it. Now it says it saved it successfully. Let's see if we trust it. We'll go ahead and refresh the browser to make sure that it works. It did seem to actually save it. We can look in the database just to double check that in the database, see it says 3434, but if I run it again, now it did indeed change in the database. So that's confirmation. So now we have a way to show the request type just like in the Atlassian Home application. And we've done it in a mere matter of seconds or minutes. So we've got the request type. Do we have the summary? We've got the summary. Then they're asking for I don't have the user ID reporter yet, but we have the status. So that's in here, status. And then we have the actions. You can edit, delete. We don't have insert yet. We have to implement that. That's not been done in my control yet, so that's something to do. Request type, if I try to save some of these other things, just double check it doesn't save the status for everyone. So if I refresh that, so we want to change this now. See, it didn't save. That's good. It can only save, put the 343 back, the summary, which is what we want in this particular implementation. So in the beginning part of the building the Atlassian task application, we've succeeded. We basically have status, request type, and task. So it's just a 3-table application that's done right here in a short YouTube video. Could have reduced the time to about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So, I mean, would you pay? The tech companies want like consultant fees of $20,000 to $30,000 for this. Plus, I mean, you put some menu bars, of course, and like some menu items and pictures and stuff and make it look nicer. But essentially, this is the hard part of it, is getting the data-driven application aspect. The rest of it is just, making it look like a nice website, which you could spend a day on it or something and make it look quite nice. So, but I don't know if you should be. Should you be spending, $20,000, $80,000, $120,000 or whatever that Google AI was recommending? We can do it in minutes. So let's take a look. And it's enterprise because we're using Java business objects. We're using strongly typed language. We have security in place. You have Apache acting as a sentinel that protects the Tomcat server and provides load balancing support. And then I'm hosted in Google Cloud, so I have Google also acting as a scalability factor that will automatically scale. And that's to handle the data portion of the application, and then the HTML is what you make of it. So this is an application, and got some paging, and that's just what I wanted to show you in this YouTube video. Let's see if there's more. So that's this basic table done in a mere minutes. So why is it that I can do this in my basement is the question. In a couple of weeks or months' time to develop the system, and tech trillionaires struggle. They can't seem to figure it out. It's like, is it because they've laid off all their senior developers? We don't know. It's just, that's open for debate. If you have a thought about why it is, I don't know why. And it seems kind of obvious that this hasn't been done before, which is why I'm making this video. So if you like, just subscribe, and there's more content like this. We can uncover why the tech billionaires are so wealthy and why it costs so much for a web application. And could it be simpler? And if it could be simpler, why isn't it? Why does it seem like the complexity is growing? And the next step, of course, would be to turn this into a React app, because you'll notice like there's mistakes in what I've done. I'll admit it. For example, if you reload the page, it's slow. You see that blink? But if I had done this in React, you wouldn't have had that. It would have been instant. It just showed up right away. So it would have been a lot quicker. We can do some things to improve. We can minify the JavaScript, and we can go over that in another video. And then we can test it against a React app that does something similar to this and see why the performance isn't there. What we're doing that's slowing things down a little bit. So that's the video. And then we'll just, so I'm exposing the tech giants for why so much complexity, and why does it cost so much, and why do we have to give up our businesses to tech giants and just trust them, and then they just charge us month over month. And why are there profit? Why? Look, let me just show you one thing real quick. If I type in richest.html, I just did a Google search. You can do this yourself too, but like, this is a summary of who's the wealthiest 5 people in the world from the year 2000, year 2001, year 2002. Look, Bill Gates, 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 Bill Gates. Carlos Slim does telephones. And then there's more Bill Gates, more Bill Gates, Bill Gates, Bill Gates still there. Haven't gone anywhere. I might have retired or done other things, but I'm still here. He's everywhere. Look, he doesn't go away. Ah, he went away 1 year. Oh, he didn't. He's still there. But some other people are catching up. Some things are changing. Look, this is called the tech luxury shift. I don't know why Google labeled it that way. But in 2020, something's changing. Ah, he's off the 5. Oh, yeah, he's up. First year ever, 23. He was off the top 5. and then something's changing. You see something is changing. Microsoft, people, it's because there's finally not a monopoly. There's alternatives, and that's what I'm showing you here today. This is one reason that he's not on the list, is because we now have ways of doing this cheaply and simply. See, that was always the challenge. If you wanted to develop a Java application, it would usually cost you more, even though all the technologies were free, just because to do it the right way takes longer. And there's less people that know how to do it the right way. Most people were literally just scripting out these things, scripting out these PHP pages real quick. And you weren't able to manage complexity. You ended up with just a rat's nest of freaking, if you ever worked on complicated projects done in PHP like this, you'll know what I mean. Like, it's difficult, so brittle. You break things so easily. And it's just scattered everywhere. Like, someone asks you to make changes, you're basically just, you're walking around at night with your eyes closed, and you can't, like, you have no idea the implication of the whole application, what's happening. Like, it's spread out forever. Like, it's so difficult to manage change this way, which Java predicted. And they came out with a Bible that warned people and showed them the right path to avoid this problem. And few listened. Microsoft came in there offering cheap, like a cheap they took a shortcut basically. And when you use .NET controls, you surrendered to Microsoft taking over, and they took over the technology, and they made it so that you couldn't work with JavaScript anymore. You just had to stay within the Microsoft domain. That seems to be again and again and again and again the strategy. Is we hijack the system, and then we charge you extortion money to, like, you trust us. Like, we're big enough that you have to trust us because we're a monopoly. And then we hijack the system and basically can charge you whatever we want, but we keep it down to a low enough price point, just high enough that we're going to stay in that top 5, but low enough that it's enticing, that it's going to be cheaper than doing it the right way. So you basically, but you give up. What you lose in that is your ability to work effectively with the technology. So you're not able to change. You have to wait for Microsoft to change before you can get any new features and stuff in the technology. So you become more and more and more reliant on Microsoft. And this is inherently the problem. So to get off that drug that so many people went for it, you can see by the top 5 list, you should have gone with the Linux Java crew early on in the 90s. You would have been okay. But it was the right way. It wasn't always the easiest path. It definitely wasn't the easiest path, but it's still the right way. Now, banks went that way. People in the know, people that had data that actually had something to lose, they never, I shouldn't say never, they sometimes did go with Microsoft solutions, but generally speaking, most people with systems that they cared about, that mattered, went with Java. And it wasn't easy because it was expensive for them to go down that road, and it cost a fortune. And I'm also exposing the good guys, because why was it so difficult? And that's just the question I want to propose. When a guy in his basement can do it, we did the Atlassian website in a mere minutes. So what you could potentially do as we invade these vertical markets is you could essentially define these simple JSON schema objects that define these editable views of what you want, and then store those away. And then when you need them, you just bring them out and display what you need for that app section or that screen. And then there you have it. So in the next video, we'll just work on something else. But I wanted to show you from like in the technology, because these people are now seem to be running the planet, like all the people on it, all the things, the hopes, dreams, all the problems that humanity faces are directly in these hands, and it's because we've surrendered to them. And I'm just here to say you don't have to. There is another way. And if I can just do it like no problem like this, I don't see why you can't. Like, you can do it. Just like what Tony Robbins says, you can do it. So hopefully this helps motivate you to recognize that there is another way. There's the API again. We could just switch to the tasks, Jira task, and then see our record in there. Is that's not the task. Jira task. Still on the other one. Why is it not switching over? Oh, because I got the task here. I meant task there. Okay. So I'm using the URL method. There's different ways of doing it. So that was the, oh yeah, there it is right there. Okay, so that's the API, the Application Programming Interface, and why it's considered better way to make a web application, how it's scalable. And so manage larger applications, you can do it this way. Okay, so that's my spiel, and we'll see you in the next video. I hope you like this video. If you do, just like subscribe or something. That'll help me a lot. Maybe I'll get the website up and running again. Then you can, you can pay like $15 for the information, like freeware or something. Okay, so yeah, just if you like, subscribe below. We'll see you in the next video.